Perfect. So I'll start sharing.
Mhm.
Okay, perfect. So we are going to talk about design hiring process. And we're going to cover, as I said, we're going to cover four main topics. It will be basically interview preparation, portfolio development, personal branding, and the imposter syndrome. And I'm going to give you a couple of, well, not a couple, but some quick tips and things to keep in mind during that process and things you have to consider in each of the steps. Before, I'm going to quickly reintroduce myself. So for those that were not here, I'm Hugo, principal designer at Muse. And just to give you a bit of background in terms of hiring processes, sorry. I joined Muse in 22, and in these 2 years, these last 2 years, we have grown from 12 designers to 56 designers, and we expect to be 75 designers by the end of the year. So I've been involved in different hiring processes with designers from different backgrounds and for different roles with different requirements. So I have more or less the idea of what you have to consider, no matter your level or your goals, what you have to keep in mind in order to be successful in a hiring process. First, and probably the most important thing, you will see that the tips when it comes to hiring, it's a stick to the basics. It's just we are always nervous in this kind of a scenario. So stick to the basics, relax, breathe. It's all about people hiring people. It's about you conveying your message, right? And telling the people that you have in front of you what is your design thinking or your design approach. So nothing that you already don't know how to do it. You know how to talk to people. So just keep in mind that it's just that, right? And apart from that, also try to understand the process. It really helps when you start realizing the conditions of a hiring process. There is not a magic formula. There is not a checklist that you have to go through in order to be successful. Obvious, but the more interviews you do, the better you will be at it. So you have to practice. It doesn't matter if it's in real interviews or at home, just faking it. But practice and try to understand the hiring process. Try to know what are the different steps in the company. Some of the companies already have the process in public in their website. So if there is the opportunity to understand what are the stages and the requirements, go ahead, jump in, Google it, and try to understand. Because just regarding numbers, last year at Muse, and these are numbers for the whole hirings at Muse, we received 44,000 applications. And of those applications, just 5K went into the hiring process. And just 370 were hired. So from 44,000 candidates, just 370 were hired. So you have to understand the ratio. You have to understand the maths behind the hiring process to understand that probably you're going to fail or you're not going to hire. So relax. It will come. You just have to prepare yourself, understand how it works, and then think that you always win. You can be hired, or if not, you can be better in interview process, right? So try to get that approach and that to face interviews in that way. So tips and considerations when it comes to interviewing. Go to the interview and be yourself. Be humble, be authentic. Don't try to pretend to be another. It is okay to be shy. It's okay to not know, to ask for time to think about an answer, or to be just nervous. We are humans and we are like that. So the interview is know that. So relax. As I said, practice, and practice your speech. And the same as you time your presentation, you have to have at least a clear message to send and understand where you want to put the focus and allocate more time to the things that you want to sell, right? Work on the slides. Probably you will have a case study, you will have a portfolio, you will have some slides, some presentations to show. So the slides are also your work, are going to be reviewed. So design them. You are a designer, so we expect you to design that as well, right? And also adapt the pitch to the different audiences. You can have a case study, and that case study have to support um, different interviewers, right? Maybe you are having an interview with a senior product designer, or maybe it's a design director. So they're going to ask different questions. So you have to be sure that you can use the same case study, the same piece of portfolio to support different stories, right? Get out of Figma and the process, tell a story. You will see that this is pretty important. As a designers, we focus sometimes, especially at the beginning of our career, we focus too much on the tooling and on the process itself. And this is important, but the most important thing is the reason why you're designing as you do. So you have to understand why you're doing things and why the solution that you're doing it's the best or the proper one, right? And last but not least, ask questions as well. You are also interviewing in a hiring process. The company want to know more about you, but you also want to know more about the company. So probably at the end of the process, you will have the chance to ask questions or even in each interview. So use that time wisely to ask the good questions or the right questions. So talking about questions, you will get a lot of them, right? There are no core questions of a list of questions for each hiring process when it comes to design. It really changes depending on the company, the role and the moment of the company or the team where the role is being required. But basically, you're going to be asked about what is your design process, right? How you measure design success, or who did you report to? About relationships, how you manage stakeholders, how is your relation with product or engineering, or explaining challenging situations or conflicts during the design process. So keep all of that in mind. The same as if you work with research or you do it on your own. So you have to like at least when you're practicing, figure it out the basic ones and those have it ready in order to put it in your message and put the focus on the most important ones. What can help you to answer those questions is the STAR framework. It is a way to present your design thinking in a narrative way. It is basically about storytelling. It has four main blocks. The first one is the situation. So it's set in the context for your story, describe the situation, where it starts. We have a design problem or design challenge, and we want a goal that we want to achieve, right? So that's the task. The second one, you have to explain that challenge, that problem to solve. And when it comes to this, also keep in mind what kind of designer you want to sell, right? If I'm applying for a product designer, I should be able to rate me more open, and maybe in the situation I start with the business goals or the business strategy, and I cascade it down to the design strategy. So keep in mind the role you're applying. If it's just a UI designer, for instance, or visual designer or UX, then you have to scope or narrow down or open it based on that role. Third one, action. Describe what you did, how you did it, and why you did it that way. Notice that I just remarked the what and the why, not the how, because in a design hiring process, probably you will be talking to designers, so they already know how to do things. The most important thing here is what and why, and especially the why. So if that's fine and I can see a lot of creativity there and a good solution, the how doesn't matter. And if it differs of your way of doing of your design process, you will adapt to the new one. That's not a big thing. What they really want to see is your design thinking, the way you approach the challenges and your problem solving mindset, right? And the last one is the result. This is the outcomes, so showing the added value of your actions. How did you change that situation and how you achieve that task through your actions? And here is the famous topic of measuring design success. So here when it comes to metrics and value, depending on the task, it will be really hard to have some metrics. And I know that some candidates probably don't have the chance to like properly track the proposals. If not, you can always talk about the expected outcomes or the outcomes or the benefits that you were expecting or that drove your process. So keeping that framework in mind will organize your pitch and will make it more problem solving oriented, right? We know that it has to be packed in a portfolio, and this is pretty important because after your CV, that it also have to be well designed. After your CV, your portfolio is the first impression that the hiring manager or the interviews will have from you. So again, you are a designer, so it's expected to be designed. Don't miss this opportunity and work on the details. You have to be really, really well worked. So do that. Take it as a design project itself because it will be analyzed and expected as this. And you can keep you can more or less follow the same rules as in the interview. So first one, be honest about your work. Clearly explain your role and don't take credit about other works. Focus on the strongest work that you have and tell its story. The STAR framework can also help here, but be sure that you want to sell a specific work and include at least 3 case studies. Can be 2, but between three, maximum 5, 7 projects, it's good. But remember that less is more. It's better having less projects, but well explained, following that strategy, that STAR framework, rather than having 12 or 15 short portfolios, right? Pieces of portfolio, sorry. Important here, let the work speak for itself. In the interview, you will be there to defend your work, but when we are checking the candidates, candidates are not there. So I should be able to understand the story while going through the case study. So think about the readability, think about the reading pace and all of that. So keep balance between text and visuals, make it simple. Don't overload or clutter the screen space with a lot of visual inputs because sometimes that's negative. So again, you are a designer, carefully design it and think it through. Emphasize the work you want to be hired for. It's related to the previous one, the strongest work. So as a designer, some of us, I don't know, like maybe you want to be more focused on UI or more on research. So you have to use your case studies in order to be hired for that. So if you really want to focus on something, on a design discipline, just remark that. You can also expand it in using other platforms. We know that we can have like, especially at the beginning of our career, like maybe I have 1, 2, 3 projects, 3 case studies that can be quite long, but then I have a lot of things that are cool and I want to show, but I cannot create a case study. So I can take advantage of those platforms such as Dribble, Layers, Behance, you already know those. And use it because I don't have to add a lot of text or explain a lot. So you can show some of your skills there as well. And the recruiters will end in those platforms as well. So use them wisely again. And the last one, create a dedicated website. That means that you really care. And it's also related to the personal branding. Creating a website nowadays is easy. We have a lot of no-code tools that can help us. It can also be a Figma prototype, but if you decide to go that way, be sure that it's really, really well linked and prototyped. So you have all the pages to page and everything looks and works as expected. And as I said, some things we have to do, some things that we don't have to do. Most of them are about the how. we all know when it comes to hiring managers and interviews, we all know what a double diamond is. We all know who Thornton Norman and Nielsen Norman Group are. We know how Figma and the design system work. And we know that the wireframes are really cool. And when you have a wall full of post-its, looks pretty cool as well. But this is part of the how. This is not showing your design thinking. This is just showing your process. And that process can be done by every designer. So you have to, I'm not saying that you don't have to put it, you have to put it, but you have to balance it, okay? Because this is something that every designer do. So be careful with that. We know that also that in every project, things go wrong. So don't focus just on the happy path to show that the process was like pretty straightforward. That's not a good thing. So when something is goes in a different way or an unexpected way, tell it, because that shows that you can, work or face the uncertainty, or you can pivot on and face some challenges. So also explain the unhappy path, and going back to the why, what the recruiters and the reviewers don't know is why you did it like that. So that should be the focus of your case study. We have the interview, we have the portfolio. Now we go to the personal branding. Okay, personal branding, it's hard and it requires a lot of time, but it's where you can intentionally shape how others perceive you, right? You can like have an impact and communicate a lot of values and principles through your personal branding. It starts on the way you talk, on the way you communicate in the interviews, but also on the way you design your case study, your CV, and all of your assets. Tips when it comes to personal branding. Again, be yourself, avoid mimicking others' success. You have to study personal and brands from companies and individuals that you like, but use it to understand the patterns and the strategies that you think that work fine and that can be adopted in your own identity, not to just copy and reuse their strategies and their identity. Just try to understand why they are doing that, learn and use it. For that, you have to figure out the designer you are or you want to be, right? Because one thing that you have to consider is that you're not going to have just one hiring process in your career. You're going to have hopefully a lot, because that means that you are growing. So keep that in mind. Also, your brand have to mature, have to iterate, and have to evolve as you do as a designer. Okay. Find where you add value and sell yourself in that domain. And also, it requires a lot of effort. So choose wisely. We know that we need a portfolio. We need some networks. If you start signing up in all the networks and communicating everywhere, that will take a lot of time, a lot of effort, and can guide you to burnout. So you don't want that. It's better to focus just, I don't know, maybe you choose X or LinkedIn and Dribble, but carefully choose those that you think that are more suitable to you, that fit you the most, and work them. Maybe in the future, you can keep expanding that network. And the rest, you have gone through the process. You can be hired or not, and you start feeling that you're not good enough. We all know what the imposter syndrome is. First thing we have to keep in mind is that this is something that will be with you the whole career. So it's not. This is not something that is just for junior designers. It's for everybody, from juniors until leadership, and it doesn't have to be bad. Sometimes it is good because it's a signal that you are expanding your comfort zone. So if a designer comes to you and say, "Oh no, I never had the imposter syndrome," that means that he or she was always in the comfort zone. So not being challenged, not getting out and learning more. So keep it as a good thing, the imposter syndrome, of course, if it's under control, right? And in order to control it, I have to recognize that I had several times imposter syndrome. And as me, all the designers are know. So if you start asking, you will realize that it's a common thing. So the best way to not fall under that syndrome is to change the mindset, right? Here I have a list of things that you can do. It worked for me in the past and it's working nowadays. So focus on quality over perfection. We know that perfection is impossible to achieve. And what it's pretty useful is to set your standards of quality, put the bar and say, okay, whatever I do have to have or have to achieve this quality. It cannot be perfect, but we are designers, so we iterate and we are getting closer to the perfection through the process. But at least I have this minimum level of quality. Then it's up to you to define what that quality is. Have to be smart, of course. Learning from instead of comparing to others. The best scenario that you can have as a designer is end somewhere where everybody is better than you, because that means that you will learn the most. So that's the mindset. You want people that challenge you. You want people that ask you for things that you are not used to and that force you to get out of the comfort zone, learn and apply new things and discover and explore. So you have to look for that because that will make you a better designer. And uncertainty is a chance to explore. It's related to that, right? As a designers, we face a lot of uncertainty, a lot of projects that are not well defined or they don't have a specific scope or a lot of pressure. So instead of falling in front of the uncertainty, just embrace it and say, okay, I have the chance to explore. I don't know about this technology or this framework, so I can take the chance to spend some time and learn, right? And this takes us to reframe the negativity. Don't complain. Try to avoid that. I know it's hard, but try to take us everything as a challenge and say, okay, this is bad, but how can, with my skill set, find the best of the solutions with this environment, right? Also, positive reinforcement. Sorry, it is really, really needed to do some retrospects to take a look back to your work, to your career, and say, okay, from time to time, stop, review, and say, okay, I have achieved all of these goals, right? Because we tend to focus on what we don't have, and we don't focus on what we achieve. If it's now or in the past. So we have to also like feed our ego as a designer and say, no, I'm doing well because of this and that. I have to improve in some aspects, but I'm good on the others. So this is the way to balance your mental health. And this also takes me to the self-care, right? We love design. One thing of the that designers have in common is the passion. But design is not your life. You have a lot of things more than design, and design is just a word, big quotes here, just a word. So take it as it is. You will fail, you will success, you will be wrong, you will be challenged. So that's part of the journey, and it is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So keep that horizon or that future in mind when it comes to self-care and balancing work and lifestyle. Okay. This brings me also to the when you are hired for your knowledge and your skills. And this is pretty important. It sounds obvious, but if you are a mid designer or a junior, you are not expected to be doing or performing as a senior. So the company knows that some things you are not going to do it like with the same quality as others. But that's because you have to grow in those areas, right? So also be sure that you have some limitations and the company already know those. So just be confident and try to keep working on those limitations, on those skills, and keep expanding them. And for that, you have to keep learning and sharing your feelings as well. It is pretty important that, well, I'm sure that you already know, but you're never going to stop learning in this life nowadays. So you have to have your career path. Don't trust the company to do that for you. You have to understand where you want to go, plan that journey, and start setting actionable items to achieve those goals. And also share your feelings. We are humans. I said that at the beginning. It's all about people hiring people or people working with people. So if you want, for example, you feel bad, just say it. If you have some concerns of some doubts of feeling the syndrome, just be open and say, okay, I'm feeling that I'm not achieving, or I'm self-confident or whatever. Because if you share it, the others will help you. But if you stay, if you shut up, not no one is going to help. So that's one of the best tips you can have, even if it's on the interviews, because it doesn't matter. I know that sometimes at the beginning, being open to people that you don't know, and especially if it comes from specific cultures, but try it and you will see that it is normal, no bad reaction. So feel free to do it. And that's all. Thank you all for listening to me. I will stop sharing and you can start asking your questions.
That was amazing. Thank you so much, Hugo. That was great. And I really liked how you covered, because obviously our audience is mixed now. So there's something for everyone for kind of each stage of their design journey. So I thought that was amazing. And I also took some notes here. Ricardo,
You.
you raised your hand, I think.
I just wanted to thank Hugo for his presentation, and thank you so much for everything that you've contributed tonight. Well done.
Thank you, Ricardo. Thank you very much.
And thanks to Ricardo as well.
Yeah.
Guys, we do have a few questions here, and I was wondering, should I go through my questions for you, Hugo, now, and just incorporate these as we're kind of moving between different things that you spoke about? So about STAR, about portfolio, branding, imposter, or how do you prefer?
Up to you. I mean, if not, we can go through the questions in the chat, maybe more interesting for the audience.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So Miguel has asked, what's the best way to get prepared for STAR type questions?
Practice. I mean, you know that we have 4 points to cover, and as writing the STAR, it's about storytelling. What the framework does is basically it makes it simple and it split it in order for you to make it more digestible or manageable. But it's basically setting the story, and it helps you. There is I don't exactly remember the author, but there was an author that was mixing the STAR, because in the STAR you have the 4 blocks, and then was adding the storytelling curve, where you go from the intro to the climax, and you're getting, you're rising to the climax, and then you go down to the solution, and you're doing the same as long as you move through the STAR. So that's a good point. I will share the link with you, Valentina, and you can after that share it with the people. And I think that's a really good strategy. Basically, we are humans and we are moved and touched by stories, most of us, and that's the best way. I mean, otherwise you will have the same. Something that maybe you have noticed is, especially in the junior portfolios, they all look the same. And if you are going out from a program or a hackathon, it's usually the same. Like you have 3 projects, pretty similar, same structure. There are clones, and you don't want that. You want to put a bit of yourself in your portfolio. You want the recruiter to see your personal branding in the portfolio. So I will recommend you to not publish the first iteration, not publish the first draft. Just make it rest, work as a design project, explore, iterate, and after a couple of weeks, you will be ready to publish it.
Very good. That was great. Thanks, Hugo. Another question from Alicia is Squarespace a good platform for portfolio? Sorry.
Yeah, this is, I mean, not strong thoughts here.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. It is good as long as it works for you. I mean, you have to understand the tool, and if the platform has a proper or easy learning curve, and or you already know how to use it, it's fine. For me, for instance, WordPress is a good platform. It's easy, it's cheap. You have a lot of support out there, and with the Squarespace, but really up to you to decide if you want to pay for the license or not. So really personal, but it works. I mean, you want to go for that, of course.
Great. And then Alessia says about dedicated website. One of my ex-teammate has been hired as a principal using only a PDF portfolio made using Figma. Advantage of that is the price and control over the content and structure. What is your opinion about the website slash PDF versus online accessibility of your portfolio?
Mhm. The PDF, I mean, there is a different approach here. The exposure of a website, it's bigger, right? So something it's public out there. The other one is just private. If it's a principal, I assume that the process is quite different because there are not a lot of principal offers out there. So you really pick the one you want to apply, and I assume that maybe this person like work a little bit the case study and adapt it to the needs of the company because they really ask for a strategic mindset. So you have to really change in order to show a case study that it's close to the activity of that company. So that's why I assume that that was the strategy. Also, if it's a principle, that means that it comes from a high level role. So probably it was staff or lead before. So you don't have a lot of time in those roles. So probably it's because of that. But I think it's better website because you share a lot of links, and when you are doing the screening or when you are looking for candidates, because remember the companies open job offers, but they also look on the internet for good candidates. So if you have a public space where you are showcasing your work, more chances to be hired.
That's a really good point. And then, as you said as well, Hugo, like for kind of higher positions, maybe your portfolio. I'm gonna say something wrong here, but maybe your portfolio is not as important, or it looks in a different,
Absolutely,
compared to the junior portfolio.
exactly.
Great. So Miguel is asking, how do you balance between demonstrating your problem-solving skills and metrics in your projects? Which one would be more relevant for the hiring manager? So,
Well, I'm going to say, as always, it depends. It depends on the role, because imagine that you are applying for a senior role, product designer role. So it's the same role, product designer, but one can end up in a team pretty operational, and the other one can be in a team more visionary, more working on vision. So that's my case, for instance, at Muse. I'm leading a team working on vision and design language more than the verticals of the domains of the product. So for me, the problem solving, if I'm hiring as a hiring manager, the problem solving skill are more important. But if you are applying for an operational role, maybe the metrics are more important because your design process will require more of those decision making, qualitative and quantitative. So that's why it's important to understand the process, analyze the company as well, and ask for your contact for what they are looking for, right? Because then you can adapt your case study, you can adapt it to a different pitch. But it will really depend. Also, also there is a part of how you are as a designer. There are designers pretty comfortable with the quantitative or analyzing a lot the data. Others are more intuitive. So you also have to explain the type of designer you are.
that's a really good shout as well. It's kind of, finding what you are good at and then also balancing that with the specific job requirements for the job that you're applying. Miguel, I hope that answers your questions. Let us know if you want to ask a follow-up question. Peter is asking, do you have an example of a designer's personal brand?
Mhm. I would say, well, the first it comes to my mind maybe is Tobias Van Snyder. I don't know if you know the house of Van Snyder, but it was one of the first designers in Spotify, and he did it. He also created a portfolio platform. So I would say that it's pretty good. He nurture a lot the networks, but again, you have to be willing doing that at that level. That's too much maybe, but it's pretty good. He positioned himself pretty well, and if you want to really go for freelancing, for instance, when you need more personal branding than being an employee. If you are freelancing, you have to really set business strategy when it comes to your personal brand. Like, I'm going to be posting about these days. I'm going to be tracking my posting. I'm going to be positioning myself in specific topics. So you really have to analyze, put some distance, and analyze yourself as a business.
Okay, that's great. Peter, if you want, we can send you the link. Hugo, you have it somewhere after the session.
I can put it here.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks, Emil Hugo. Foylan is asking, is there an expected length of time you expect even an entry-level candidate to have under their belt? Or is a portfolio of 3 to 5 projects really good enough?
For me, 3 to 5, it's good enough. For instance, at Muse, when we do portfolio reviews, we ask for 2 case study. Usually in usually in 90% of our interviews, we go just to 1. Because you also have to understand that it's the quality that you show, not the quantity. So the hiring managers or the ones that are interviewing, they already knows how to detect quality or if they fit. And also think about that you have to culturally fit. That's a point. If you don't fit the company culture, it will be hard. And that's something that you cannot control. But you have to understand that maybe you don't fit and they don't want you. If you fit culturally and the quality is good enough, probably they don't want to see more of your work. They want to meet you. So they want to go to the question. They want to ask you questions, and they want to know what are the questions that you're doing. Because when you ask questions, you are also showing who you are or how you are. So keep that in mind. But 3 to 5, it's perfect. You don't need more than that. Less than 3, they have to be really good. Then you can. Some people, what they do, if they have just, for instance, 2, they have a website where the public area you are explaining a lot your mindset or your design thinking, and then you put your work in a private area, and you pass the password. And then when you contact the hiring manager, you say, okay, I just have 2 case studies, but they are good because of this, that, and blah blah blah. And then you give some context, and you are warning the recruiters, right? So it's different, because otherwise you jump and you say you can be taking a lot of assumptions. Oh, just do case studies. Why? I don't know. So to avoid that, you can do these kind of things.
Mm-hmm. And then you can isolate the case studies that are relevant to that company that you're applying to, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay, that's a great idea. Pratik is asking, I don't find many entry-level UX roles on LinkedIn or other career sites. What's the best way to find them?
Yeah. Well, we have to understand the situation of the market nowadays. It's really struggling. We're going through kind of a crisis, I would say, because of the big techs in US. So all the layoffs and all that stuff is starting to impacting our market here in Europe and beyond. So just keep trying. Remember the math. Remember when I was showing the numbers, applications versus hired people. So keep that in mind. And I know that it's not fair, but I remember when some years ago when I was applying, it was like, well, one of 100 applications will reply me. So you have just to, start shooting and start sending. So I think that LinkedIn is good. We have a lot of remote platforms for remote jobs, and I think if you start looking on those platforms, you can have a lot. I can also share a list, but let me check. You have Remotive, you have Angel, well, formerly Angel List. You have a lot. And also what it's also useful is in LinkedIn, you can set alerts for jobs. So start like finding the companies that you like or you would like to work on. Check if they are if they have open positions. If not, just try to connect with the people and start like saying hi. I get a lot of messages in LinkedIn, and every time that someone approach me, I say the same. It's like, okay, I check the portfolio. If it fits or it can fit, what is encourage them to apply. So just say hi and ask for feedback regarding your portfolio.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And yeah, it's true. Market is just very strange now. Hopefully, it'll get better soon. But yeah, it is a bit tough to get a job as a junior. Jishnu is asking, I've been contemplating whether it's beneficial to outline the process we employed for user interface design. Sometimes potential employers might be uncertain about whether we specialize in UX or UI. However, I firmly believe that a proficient UX designer encompasses expertise in both the process and user interface design. What are your thoughts on this?
Oh, let me search for that one. Which one?
So, Jishnu, is it so he's asking
Oh, I got it.
yeah,
Sorry, hello.
if he should specialize in UX UI as a designer.
It's really. I'm not. Let's be careful with this. The broader you are, or the more skills you have as a designer, it will give you more chance to get a job. If you consider, for instance, product designers are present from the beginning till the end, so they learn about business language, they understand the strategy, the goals, the user needs. So they do the research, they do everything, and they are present in the implementation, and then they track the success. So the more you have, the better. If you really, this is pretty personal. If you're really up to visual design or user interface design, it's fine. But then you have to really nail your portfolio and really craft those skills and excel those skills, and then use those platforms and like LinkedIn, Dribbble, or maybe some Slack communities to start like showcasing. What is good in terms of UI is that you don't need uh, a long case study. I mean, if it's just if you have UX, you have to explain the research method and the insights from those. If you're just showcasing the UI, the work is gonna talk by itself more than the other. So it's really up to you, but understand that if you are focusing on UI, you're gonna have less chances. Unless the company is looking for a visual designer or but also I will recommend to tag yourself or define yourself as a visual designer rather than UI. Because also UI, if UI, it can be misunderstood, and if you are a UI designer, maybe I want some expertise in design system. Maybe I want expertise in accessibility, in A/B testing. So be sure that you understand what are the requirements for UI roles, because otherwise you can be showcasing something that what it's doing is highlighting the lack of the other skills. You know what I mean? So really be smart when you are showcasing that. If you have a wider profile, you can put less effort in the different stages or less time in the speech. But also considering if you think about the design process, the UI design is a part of it. So if you focus the whole case study, you focus it in that stage, you have to fill all the interview with that stage. So
That's a really, really good point.
mhm.
Thanks, Hugo. We have a few other questions here. As a UX designer, Nadia is asking, as a UX designer with no experience, how to gain experience to apply for jobs and build my portfolio?
Well, you can just work on fake projects or side projects. When I was mentoring, I recommend a lot of the students to just, I don't know, take a project that you like and rethink about it, make a concept. Because if you show, we are framing this as in the junior designer spectrum, okay? If you are junior and you're doing a great work, doesn't matter if it's real or not. Of course, there are some nuances and some considerations, but if you come to me with 2, 3, 5 concept projects that are really good, that means that you know how to design. Then maybe the interview process changed a little bit in order to understand how you deal with feedback, how you collaborate, and do you know how to expose your design thinking? Do you know how to analyze but you are in the process, so you will adapt, and yeah, just create things and be sure that you are mentioning that in the case study or when you are applying, like I'm in this level and I'm looking for an opportunity. I understand that that makes things more challenging. Also be smart, and I mentioned before about a long-term goals. So as a designer, you have to understand, okay, I want to work for Google, but you cannot be working for Google next year. So you have to set a plan. Maybe you say, okay, I want to work for this kind of company. So that's my first step. Then I spend there 2 years or 3, and I change in order to improve and get a better role. And also set that plan and try to think about that journey and how you're going to get to that major league companies, if that's your goal. Because otherwise you will be trapped in a cycle where you are applying and being rejected. Don't want that.
Very good. Yeah, that's so true. The best thing to do is just, as you said, practice and take anything that you want and just follow the design process. Yeah, we have Bianca joining now. So I'm just going to move on to the following one. I think you already covered this, Pedro's question in one of your previous answers, how to share project specifics that are bound by an NDA, for example, DUI.
First, you have to make it private and then really read the NDA because nobody reads those documents. Read it, and you can replace the logos, you can replace the data, and just kind of fake it. And if you explain it, it's fine. It's pretty similar to what I've mentioned with the concept project, right? I don't care if you are saying that you have an NDA and I cannot see the real logo, the real data. It's fine. The solution the same. The situation, the starting scenario is the same. The process, the why you did that, and how and what are the same. It only changes that logo. Of course, it's the Netflix logo. It will have more impact, but the people that are interviewing you are smart, so they know. Don't worry about that. Just be open, say it, and we'll be fine. If the UI work is good, it doesn't matter the logo or the customer.
Very good. And as you said as well, like just protect it with a password so it's not accessible for everyone. I had this in my previous company as well. So protect it and then just gonna share it with the without logo, obviously. Just to come back on Nadia's question, Miguel said that there are websites where you can do work as a volunteer as well. Alicia is asking, which case studies should I present? I have options ranging from usability testing, interaction design, information architecture to accessibility testing. I'm struggling to decide which one to present.
Yeah, you have to know yourself, and in that plan, you have to understand. I would say, if I hire you, the most of your time or your fulfillment will come from what stage. If you are happy doing interaction design, so put the focus on that part. Put it everything on the case study. I'm not saying setting a section for usability or for information architecture, but don't forget to mention that you were working on those different things, and then put the focus or remark the one that you enjoy the most. If you are more visual, put the the focus on the last part, because I can have, for instance, I don't know, I do a lot of research, I do a lot of usability testing, information architecture, but maybe because of something, the project gets stopped and I cannot develop all the UI, but it's the thing that I enjoy the most and that I want to work on. I'm going to focus on that, even though I have more assets and resources on the other thing. I will showcase that in order to explain my skills and say that I'm a multidisciplinary, or I'm a skill designer. I'm not just doing visual, but what I enjoy the most and what I want to work on is this one. If you don't do that and you put the same weight in each section, you will have to answer the question that which is the stage of the design process that you enjoy the most or that you feel more comfortable. That's the question that I always do. They don't make it clear, because you want to understand how the designer is, because that designer will end up in a team and it has to complement the rest of the designers in that team. So be sure that you are mentioning all of them and putting emphasizing what you really like to work.
That's great. Thanks, Emil Hugo. We have a last question here from Nadia. Is doing certifications on UX design tools considered as experience, and will it enhance my resume and LinkedIn profile?
Well, that's difficult to answer. I always encourage people to do that because of the knowledge, not because of the title or the certification. Of course, if I have several, I always check that, for instance, but I'm not sure if everybody do that. And I go through the certifications, the courses, everything. And then, because when you go through that, okay, you did the course, but I'm not sure if you understood all the concepts in that course, or if you are applying the insights from the course, right? So in fact, a title is telling you nothing. So, but that means that you care. That means that you put some of your time on learning, and that means ambition and willingness to be better, right? And that's why I like the most when I see someone that goes through that. And so maybe it's not an expert, but at least it have some knowledge about that. And maybe it's not mastering that skill, but during the process, it will be in their mind. So that's value for me and for my team. So I encourage you. It won't have the same weight as, well, it depends on the certification, but it won't have the same weight as a master, for instance. But it's good, and it's always a good way to start in some domains. But we have nowadays the artificial intelligence, right? Don't pay a master and jump directly to artificial intelligence. So start with some small courses or short courses, right? And start getting into the domain. And if you like it, then go beyond and maybe invest your money, right? But if not, it's fine to stay in that level just because of awareness, right? Of the domain.
Very good, yeah. And then, as you said as well, like the most important thing is whatever you have, kind of whatever you finish your course, and it's important to demonstrate that in your work as well.
Absolutely.
Pratik has another question. Are there websites to take small UX tasks for practice on UX skills?
Not specific websites that I know, but I remember that in the past, I'm not quite updated with this kind of website, but I remember that there were like a couple of newsletters where you join and they were sending you daily challenges. One, I remember one for the UI, I think it was 101 UI or 100 UI challenges, something like that. There was one also for product design challenges. And I have used Briefbox. You can try this one. But if you Google it, I'm sure that you will find. And basically what they're doing is sending you like design tasks and you just do the exercise. And that's one thing that it's useful if you don't have a proper portfolio or proper projects. You can work for a time on that or doing, as you have in the interviews, you can be working on that, keep your motivation, and you can be, like publishing that on different platforms. And it also showcase your skills. So yeah, I would recommend that.
Very good. And then the last, it's not actually a question, but it's Jishnu is asking if it would be possible for you to review a portfolio, perhaps his, and provide feedback as if you were a recruiter assessing an applicant's application.
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to reach me. I can paste my LinkedIn here if you think it's fine, Valentina.
Yeah, sure.
In the chat. So if you want to send, I can do a quick review and tell what I see. Yeah, more than happy to help.
That's amazing. I'm not sure, Hugo, do you have a little bit more time? I have a few questions. Actually, I have a lot of questions, but I'm just going to ask a few. Just time cautious. So you covered everything from STAR methods to portfolio, personal branding, imposter syndrome. I have a few questions about the STAR method. So beyond actually, like in that basically stage, beyond technical skills, what soft skills are the most valued by hiring managers in a UX design interview?
Yeah, a good one. I think I would say that stakeholder management, one of the most needed. So for those that are new in design, stakeholder management is in every project you will have some stakeholders, so people interested on the project, and you have to update them, you have to collect the insight, you have to collaborate with them, and you have to involve them in the project. So those people sometimes are out, well, sometimes not, most of the time are out of the design department. So you have to be pretty sure that you are like keeping them active during the process. That's a good one. Storytelling and communication, that's another one. And if you can do storytelling, for example, is one of those that you can in a short course you can get because there are basic practices and tips that you can use in your daily tasks. And storytelling as communication, it requires practice. So it's something that you can improve from now. And strategic thinking, I think that's also pretty needed, especially if you are applying for a product design role, and especially if you're going up to senior roles or leads. But if not, even if you are applying for junior or mid, it's good to keep that in mind and start putting that learning and that growth into your plan, and start like, because one thing is that when you are showcasing the design in a company, they don't care about design. You can talk about white space, but they don't care. They are talking business, so you have to talk business as well. And they want to understand the outcome. Um, I don't know. I don't know if the accessibility is good. I don't know if the typography is one of the best in the history of design. I want to know if I will change my numbers with that solution, right? So you have to start um, thinking and learning that business language, thinking about metrics, about how to track your success and how to communicate to specific stakeholders. You probably will be talking to product and engineering, so you have to speak the same language or at least have strategies to convince them. And if you go farther and you go to a leadership layer, you have to speak pure business. So you have to connect your proposals to the strategy. You have to be aware of what are the goals of the company. And that's a good exercise to do from the beginning, even if it's just you are a senior and maybe you are not that involved or a mid designer, you should start looking at the company goals and the company strategy and try to understand how that strategy cascades through to get to your level. And if there is not a public document about the strategy, just ask your manager and start asking why we're doing this, why we're doing that, why we have to put effort on this and not on that, or what's the goal behind all these new projects that are on the roadmap. So start thinking in that sense.
Mm-hmm. That's great. And then another thing you kind of mentioned in the first part of your presentation that candidates should also ask questions to the interviewers because they're also interviewing them. Which questions do you think
Absolutely.
best to ask?
It also, and sorry for that, but it will depend on the on the role. But usually, I will recommend to ask about how the company aligns on the roadmap, or what are the skills to succeed in this position, how the decision making is done in the company, how the company, for example, measures success or track progress of the design solutions, right? Or who are the main design stakeholders in the company? How does this position contribute to the company goals? You can really link to the previous skills that we were mentioning, because if you make questions that are related to stakeholder management, storytelling, communication, attention to detail, collaboration, you are in a way like telling the interviewers that you care about that, right? Ask about the team dynamics and rituals inside the team and the department, right? How they share knowledge, how they boost the design culture inside the company, right? What is the best and the worst of working in that company? Professional development or growth. What are the different career plans, or if I can grow as an IC or as a manager as well? What are the different paths that they have? The strategic direction, for instance, of the company for the following years, and yeah, more or less that. Then you can go to questions more specific for the interviewers and say, I don't know, what's your most difficult challenge in your current team, or how has changed your role since you started, or things like that.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Thanks, Hugo. And my last question. You probably run into some portfolios while kind of hiring someone, some portfolio that were really bad, and then some of them that really stood out to you and being like really good. Those that were really good, why were they so good? Like, is there some way that you can describe them to us? How would you describe a perfect portfolio, basically?
I have to admit that I cannot remember any portfolio that really is. But again, I've been in the design field for 18 years. So, but it's like I've seen really good portfolios, and when I was shocked was in the interview.
Yeah.
So it is not, that's one thing to also keep in mind, that you have to really work your portfolio. It has to be really good, but don't think that the work will be done by the portfolio. The portfolio is a tool. It's a supporting material for your pitch. So the one that is going to bring the most value will be yourself and the way you communicate. So I've seen portfolios that you were going through the case study and saying, "Oh, this is pretty good. A lot of seniority. It's a solid case study going through a good link in the strategy, going through a great reading and visuals." And it was like, okay, it's fine. It deserves an interview, right?
Mhm.
And then in the interview, the candidate really practiced the storytelling and really engaged, and he showed. He really showed the passion, and you see in the eyes that they really care about what they're doing, and pretty motivated, and that's the point when you say, wow, man, you really nailed it, right? And it's when you see that connection,
Mhm.
because one thing that we have in favor is that passion that I was saying before, right? And we all like design, and if you are being interviewed by a designer, it's easy to find a connection.
Mhm.
So it's like, if, for instance, here we are right now almost 20 people, but if we start talking about Apple, about Google, about AI, we will start like creating those synergies, right? That
Mm.
good mood, and oh, I like this, I like that. So we can find a lot of connections. So try to establish those connections, right, in the interview. And if you put the passion, it will work. And if it doesn't work, maybe that means that it's not the right place for you. That's also something that we have to consider, right?
Mhm.
There are also a lot of candidates that at the end of a process, they're saying, I don't accept the offer.
Mhm.
You know, of course, this is in higher levels, but that's also a reality, right? So we have to, that's why I was at the beginning of the presentation saying you have to understand what the hiring process is. You have to understand what you go through, and it is just part of the journey. You have to do that,
Mhm.
and try to avoid the nervous and the imposter syndrome. It is like, if you think about, it's something that you are going to do like constantly, or during a period of time, you're going to do it from time to time. And it's like cooking. When I'm cooking, I'm a really bad cooker. So, but when I'm cooking, I'm not saying, "Oh, how bad I am." No, I'm just cooking and I do it, and it's fine. So you have to try to change your mindset, and take out a lot of pressure from yourself, and say, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it the best I know, and use my storytelling, put my hat on, and it's like you are in a theater and you have to communicate, and you have to do that. Just face it, and it will be fine.
That's amazing. That's all from my side. Thank you so much, Hugo, for everything. Like, this was very, very, very insightful. Like, I really enjoyed it. I'm sure everyone else enjoyed it.
The pleasure.
Does
Thank you.
anyone else have any questions? Follow up? No. So yeah, just to summarize, guys, STAR method, better prepare for it. As Hugo said, practice, practice, practice. Practice makes perfect, and it's very, very important to structure your answers in a STAR framework. When it comes to portfolio, there's no shortcuts. So basically, whatever you come up with, like whatever your portfolio is, if you get a job interview, just make sure that you're brilliant in your job interview as well, and make sure that it kind of connects. Whatever you said in your portfolio kind of connects with the person that you are in the interview. Imposter syndrome is perfectly normal for everyone. I have it. Everyone has it. It's normal.
Yeah.
It's great. Actually, it's a great thing that you have it. Any other questions? Hugo has given his LinkedIn there. Any other questions, reach out to me. I'm also on UX3 community on Slack. So yeah, thank you so much for joining. And Hugo, thank you so much. This was great.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
Thanks, Emil. And thanks, Ricardo, one more time. That's amazing. Thank you, guys. Enjoy the rest of your night, evening.
Yeah, you too.
Soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you.
Bye. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks very much.
Bye. Thanks.
Thanks, Hugo. Thanks for that.